needle on the record.
Welcome to Wage Cucking with JMO.
All right, guys, welcome to yet another episode of Wage Cucking with JMO. Today we got Taiki here, 1/4, I believe, of the Steady Lads podcast, and the humble farmer himself. Taiki, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Yeah, the price of the coins appear to be going down. We're recording this on what, the 5th. Yeah, in the past like 24 to 48 hours, we saw like I think Bitcoin's down like 20%, Ethereum and various L1s, various altcoins are down like somewhere between like 20 and 40%, I believe. I haven't checked the numbers recently, but we'll talk about that a bit later. So before we get started, you want to tell the listeners like your history in crypto, how you got in, how you got into not only farming yourself or investing yourself, but also producing crypto content?
Yeah, sure. I graduated college in 2019. I was working a regular job. And then I think 6 months later, COVID happened, got laid off, and I was forced to recontemplate my life. And at the time, I decided to go full-time poker, just because all the casinos closed, the online games were super soft, and I was making more money through poker than like my regular job anyways. So I'm like, okay, like let me just at least give it a try. And through poker, I joined a couple of discords, like poker discords, and this was in 2020. So that's when crypto was starting to rip. And I was like, okay, like I'm making more money through crypto than I am through poker, so I might as well focus on this thing instead. And initially, I kind of wanted to work in crypto, to just like find a job. But because I had no finance background, I figured I might as well build like a video resume, right? Just so start a YouTube channel, make videos, just so that if I applied to crypto companies in the future, I can be like, hey, like I know what I'm talking about. Here are some of my videos. But in 2021, early 2021, I started farming on chain, got wrecked, paying high gas fees on Ethereum. Was like, fuck this. I want to go to cheaper chain. Went to Polygon, and I caught like the initial run up in Matic. And that's when, I used DeFi, Aave, Curve, QuickSwap, like all those things for the very first time. Got into like those Ponzi's, like the food farms. Oh, they weren't really food farms, but they're like just pure Ponzi's. And that's when I kind of really got in the weeds. And I think through my videos, a lot of people also onboarded like on chain through like the Polygon Ponzi's. And yeah, like ever since then, like my channel popped off, and I figured, you know what, like I might as well keep this going. Kind of specializing in DeFi and farming, but I also do like various podcasts too.
Is there a reason why you got into Polygon specifically over, say, like BSC or I don't know, like the other Phantom? I believe at the time was like a pretty big L1. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I think in Q4 of 2020, I was kind of low key ETH maxi, right? I was like, okay, I was buying ETH, Aave, SNX, and like those like DeFi coins. And when BSC started popping off in January of 21, I kind of faded it because this is like centralized scam piece of shit, like whatever, right? And then like all my friends that went to BSC like bought Cake, and I think there was like a Chainlink fork called like Berry or something. Like they all like 100x, and I was so pissed. I was like, why am I such an ETH maxi? So I told myself the next centralized cheap chain that launches that gets a lot of users, I'm just going to ape. So, when Polygon started ramping up in March/April, I just aped. So trying to learn from my mistakes in the past.
Yeah, I was gonna say Polygon is quite. I feel like it's quite centralized as well, especially at that time. I remember when I first got on a Polygon, I was doing some bridging, and then like just like my bridging experience, I realized like
It's horrible.
the native bridge was basically run by like 3 people, and if they like went on
Yeah,
lunch break or something, like you had to wait for your coins. Like I remember I had like a transaction stuck, and then I like they had like a help desk or something. I messaged them like my money is stuck. And they're like, I'm sorry, we all went out to lunch. We'll get to it in a few hours. And I'm like, I guess this is the future of finance. This is how it's going to work. Um,
exactly.
yeah. So you're playing poker a bit. Do you feel that like your time in poker helped contribute, or like at least the skill set you got from poker helped contribute to your success in crypto?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think every poker player will say this, but it's like not being afraid to put, money on the line when you think you have an edge, and also not being results oriented. And also I've played poker like throughout my college years, and my net worth has like fluctuated so much that, like even in the most recent market dump, of course it doesn't feel good, but I'm not really
Yeah.
phased by it. It's like, yeah, like it is what it is, it's just the cost of doing business. So
Yeah.
I think trying to detach emotionally from the money, I think that's the most important thing. And also, not like being too shy, I guess, when you think the opportunity is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like from my poker experience, like the one thing that like has always stuck with me is just like the complete indifference to winning or losing money, knowing that short-term variance doesn't necessarily mean that you're invalidated or you're wrong, you're not good at what you're doing. It like shit happens, and if you can, not be an emotional wreck, especially days like this where I feel like a lot of the listeners or watchers of this podcast probably lost a very substantial amount of their net worth in like the past like 24 to 48 hours, at least on paper. But just to like, if you're a trader, if you're a farmer, if you're doing whatever to like continue doing what you think is correct, be level headed, not trade emotionally, not try to chase losses, stuff like that. And I feel like any, any profession that, like trading, gambling, poker, that that sort of teaches you that skill set, contributes to that skill.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
So,
guess I think through one last thing is like through poker, like we would all have these like downswings, right? Like we just like
uh-huh.
run bad and whatnot. And it's like it's not like a regular job where if you just show up, you make money. Like you
Uh-huh.
have to show up and just keep grinding. So it also teaches you to just believe in yourself.
Hmm.
So even if you're running bad, it's like, okay, like, I still need to keep going. I will say, like, I think crypto is less stressful than poker, honestly. Uh, like, I'm not sure if that's the case for you, but like when I was playing poker, I was like meditating every day because I was like so stressed, like just getting tilted. But
Yeah.
crypto is like, yeah, like, like I still believe in, Bitcoin, ETH, whatever. So I'm fine holding these things, even though my net worth has gone down
Yeah,
recently.
yeah, I would agree. The poker is a lot more stressful. I think the reason it's more stressful for me, at least, is because you're more control or in control of like the decisions you make. So, if you like make a wrong, like if you're playing poker, you're playing like hundreds and hundreds of hands, and like there's small nuanced spots where if you make like a mistake or you do something incorrectly, it's like really on you. Where in crypto, you're at least for the most part, people are taking like long-term approaches to investing, and they're not necessarily like trading like the 1 minute charts and stuff like that. So like
Yeah.
the personal impact, at least for me, of like coins going down is a lot lower than if I personally make a mistake, and as a result of that mistake I'm losing money in poker, then I'm like a lot harder on myself. Whereas like the market movements I can't really control. I mean, like I can only attempt to predict them, and I guess that's part of the skill. When it comes to crypto, is being able to anticipate market moves, which direction the market is moving, which coins are going to go up, which coins are going to go down, and execute those strategies. But it's a little bit different, and it's a little less pressure, at least for me, to get it always correct. Um, yeah, so before I want to talk a little bit about DeFi, but before that, I feel like we should talk a little bit about the price action or what's going on in crypto in the past. I want to say like it's probably been like 48, maybe 72 hours at this point. But we had like a pretty big downturn in the markets. Like alts are down quite a bit. The macro is looking like the global macro situation is looking kind of poor. It appears that Jump is unwinding their entire crypto positions, or whether it's like Ethereum, Solana, what even stable coins and stuff like that. That there seems to be market sell pressure coming from, like I don't know exactly where, but it seems to be coming from all angles. There's probably been like I want to say like $4 or $5 billion worth of liquidations across like dexes and centralized exchanges and stuff like that. Um, so has this period of time changed your like overall outlook on crypto, at least like for the next year or so?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I always expected the summer period to be choppy, but I didn't really expect us to go to like 2200.
Uh-huh.
I was actually buying ETH like sub 3K.
Uh-huh.
So I think the initial dump to 3K I bought, and then this weekend I bought ETH at like 2700. I'm like, oh yeah, like this is good price. We can kind of incorporate like farming aspects, but right now on Scroll, I'm airdrop farming Scroll.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the ecosystem rewards you for TVL. So what I've done is putting on some light leverage. It's like ETH is collateral, borrow USDC, buy more ETH, recollateralize, and that
Mm-hmm.
way I'm kind of increasing my TVL.
Mm-hmm.
To get like more points. Because I was
Yeah.
like, okay, like sub 3K ETH, I feel like it'll be a good enough price in the next couple of months into year end. Just buy. And then I wake up and it's like down 20%. It's like, oh shit. But like it doesn't really like I don't know. I still like ETH at these prices, even though, you know, the sentiment for ETH is pretty bad. I'm looking into DeFi coins. So recently I bought like Aave. I think,
Uh-huh.
you know, these DeFi coins are finally about to become investable. I
Uh-huh.
think DeFi is one of those sectors where everyone in the market knows that it has product market fit, but the token themselves are just untouchable. But as soon as that starts to shift, I think there can be more flows into that sector. So I'm like more trying to figure out, you know, 2025 narratives. And
Mm-hmm.
I think DeFi could be one of it. So yeah, that's kind of my market views.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it interesting that like I feel like farming from the point where you got in was like 2020, 2021, where like you would have what you I guess you call them like food farms, but they would print governance tokens, but you would be able to, you know, see the APY and you could sort of figure out like your return. That sort of changed into like this points metagame where you're farming for future points, but like the future points don't really have current market value. Like they're not tradable. You're not like harvesting your points on a daily basis or like a weekly basis if you don't want to pay the fees on Ethereum, and you're sort of anticipating like the value of these points. So how do you go about like your process of deciding what to farm, or you know, like valuing these future points, these future airdrops, and what percentage of like the total pool you have, when you're presented with like, you know, like 4 or 5 farms, how do you choose the one that you decide to go with?
Yeah, so there's a few ways to think about it. So, you know, you shouldn't farm something that will not be worth anything, right? So, for
Mhm.
example, I think Aave forks money market tokens, like they all go to zero. So it's not really worth risking capital into those things.
Mhm.
And I think accounting for the risk is also important. So out of all the LRTs, I'm only farming EtherFi because
Mhm.
I think they have the best, you know, the highest quality team and the best
Mhm.
product. Even though, you know, the EtherFi airdrop I got was like, you know, like peanuts.
Uh-huh.
Um, you kind of have to expect. So for like, I'm farming Scroll because I think reasonably maybe they can be worth like 3 to 5 billion FDV. If
Mhm.
they airdrop 10% of supply, it's like 300 to $500 million. So if I can just, you know, be a piece of that, and I'm not really taking on that much risk,
Mhm.
because I want to be long ETH anyways. So if I can generate outsized returns for holding ETH, I just like try to figure out what the best options for that is.
Mhm.
And, you know, I don't really try to, you know, value points. It's like, okay, like 1 point equals 10 cents. Like I don't really try to do that. It's more so, okay, like this is the best place to park ETH. I'm just gonna put ETH here and just wait. It's not
Okay.
really, yeah, I don't try to like do spreadsheets because every
Okay.
time someone does spreadsheet math on points, it always ends up like not working, right? They
Yeah.
overvalue by like 10x. So I
Yeah.
just try to not do that.
So in that sense, you don't really like you don't really look at your positions and estimate their APYs when you're putting them in. You're just comparing them to like other protocols or other L2s that you could be farming, and decide on like, this one I think will perform better than this one, therefore I'll do the one that I think will perform better.
Yeah. Also, you know, I often talk about like sleep adjusted returns. Like I don't want to
Uh-huh.
be like buying like random LRTs just because the implied APY is like 30% over like 15% or something.
Uh-huh.
It's like I want to be able to sleep at night. So, you know, with Scroll, I'm on Aave. With EtherFi, I'm depositing
Uh-huh.
the symbiotic.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess I'm like
The,
double
that
farming. So
that was actually the next thing I was going to ask, because I know, like, if you're in EtherFi, EtherFi offers quite a few different products now. Like, I think they used to just have one restaked Ethereum that went into EigenLayer, but now I believe they're supporting like Symbiotic, they're supporting like Karak, they're supporting EigenLayer. I think they have like a few other pools. Um, so like between those, how do you decide, like, which like liquid restaking protocol you want to put your ETH in, even if you decide like EtherFi is the best platform?
yeah, I mean, I'm farming symbiotic, like I said, because I
Uh-huh.
don't like I'm not really bullish Karak. Like I don't really know what they're trying to do. Like honestly, I don't even know what symbiotic's trying to do either. But like
Yeah, yeah,
honestly, right? Like who the hell knows like what the hell they're
yeah.
trying to do? But I think symbiotic will be worth more than Karak, and because Paradigm is backing them,
Uh-huh.
there's like a non-zero chance that the airdrop mechanic is like could be like a positive surprise. Maybe like I think eigenlayer transferability is going to be September 30th at the
Hmm.
earliest. So, maybe they decide to TGE before them, just to say like F you.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like it's just accounting for like that particular. Yeah, so I'd rather farm like symbiotic for that reason. Um, and I'm like just doing it on multiple wallets
Uh-huh.
because might as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Takes
yeah.
a lot of time, but it is what
It's
it
it's
is.
always good to get a nice little sybil going. Yeah. So, I guess in retrospect, from your time farming, were there any protocols that weren't like too crowded that you were in like pretty early, or you were in like a lower TVL situation that went well, that you're like particularly proud of? Or like the counterpoint to that is, were there any protocols that you didn't farm in retrospect that like you thought you really should have, that you missed out on?
Yeah, so I'll address the second one first because it ties into the first thing. But I didn't farm Jito
Uh-huh.
like last year, which was a huge miss on my part because like I had my analysts like just farm it on like 10 wallets and they got like 100K total. And I was like, what the hell? Like, how did I not do that? And I think looking back on like my plays, even like the Matic play we talked about, it's
Mhm.
like I miss something, I get mad at myself, and then I kind of adjust my strategy moving forward. So as soon as I missed Jito, I immediately like staked a bunch of Tia and I got like a really big dime airdrop. So
Mhm.
that's probably like one of the better ones that I've done. I get trolled a lot for Tia because I like kind of shit post and I mid curve post about myself all the time.
Mhm.
But like that was a pretty good play. Uh, I think I also staked Matic earlier this year because I thought I would get the Avail airdrop and other airdrops. So far, I've only gotten Avail, but I don't think that many people stake Matic, so it was pretty underfarmed.
Mhm.
And I was able to like dump it on the Koreans when like there was like a 10x premium, so that was pretty good.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So for like these all the ones where you sort of have to hold like the native token, like if you're farming Judo, you have to hold, a
So yeah.
Solana, you have to hold Tia. Are you okay having exposure of these coins? Are you hedging them on, like perps or something like that to attempt to be market neutral, or do you just go on a case by case basis?
Yeah, it's more of on a case by case basis. I mean, this is all hindsight, but in hindsight, I think hedging on Hyperliquid would have been really smart
Hmm.
because not only can I hedge out the price risk, I'm also getting these points. And it seems like Hyperliquid is going to be one of the more hyped airdrops in
Uh-huh.
Q3 or Q4.
Yeah, I
Um,
actually like Hyperliquid quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the HLP vault just with stablecoins, and
Uh-huh.
I got like a decent amount of points because I got in like late 22 or 23. I forget when the HLP started, like
Uh-huh.
becoming a product. But I really should have stayed longer, traded more. I kind of had this view that perp dexes are probably not worth much. I thought DYDX was going to just be the leader, and all
Uh-huh.
these perp dexes won't be anything. But clearly, I was wrong. And as soon as DYDX started to vest, it seems like the team started to like care about it less.
Yeah.
So it seems like Hyperliquid wants it more, which is definitely more bullish.
Yeah, like one thing I really like about Hyperliquid is I feel like the team behind Hyperliquid is really on top of like what the market wants to trade in terms of perps. So like a lot of times, especially like I want to say in the past like 6 months or so, there's just coins that like, launch one week and have like huge market cap, huge volumes, like within a week or within 2 weeks, and then die down after that. And I feel like traditional like if you compare it to something else like an Arbitrum like GMX, GMX, the design is nice, but they're like really rigid. I mean, like the design's a bit different, so they have to do this, but it's they're really rigid in the assets they allow you to trade. While like on Hyperliquid, if there's like a Solana meme coin that launches and suddenly gets like $100 million market cap, like within a week it'll be listed as like a high perp or something like that, and there's going to be quite a bit of volume on Hyperliquid. And yeah, like I'm actually pretty bull. Like I don't have like that many Hyperliquid points, but I'm pretty bullish on the airdrop just because like it's you talk about like I forgot the airdrop you farm that's like backed by Paradigm, but it seems that Hyperliquid is one of the only like um points programs that it doesn't have like VC backing, that like people are anticipating like the points to be worth some. I mean, like I think the team is just like self-funded. They built it from scratch, and it's probably going to be like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, perp decks on Ethereum L2s for like the next like 4 or 5 years, I think.
Yeah, and I guess it also highlights that, even if you're a category leader like the OIDX, it's really easy to be overrun
Mhm.
by just a new team with a points program. And
Mhm.
Hyperliquid after season one, they're probably going to do season two and season three. So I think the metrics will continue to look good. But I think with everything, I think season one's going to be the biggest airdrop, and then everyone's
Yeah.
going to farm season two because there's people missed out, they want to farm whatever. But season two is always like really, really bad. Like it never ends up working. It's like Blur season one was good. Blur season
Yeah.
two got people wrecked. So I think it's going to be like a similar case for
Yeah.
Hyperliquid.
What do you think the future looks like for these like this points metagame where people are farming for points? I mean, like now you have basically points for everything. Yeah, you have points for like the Dex token on like a perp Dex, or even like a like whatever type of Dex. You have points programs for new L2s. You have points programs for like Ethereum restaking. You have points programs for borrow lend platforms. And then people are sort of just like jumping around these, right? Like you farm this until the points program is up, and then like I assume most people are selling when the points convert to tokens. You're mainly selling back to whatever native currency you used to farm, and then you're jumping to the next protocol. But like to me, this doesn't seem that sustainable. Like the musical chairs have to stop at some point. Like they can't. We can't just be printing new tokens and new money and giving it for free away like forever. So how do you how long do you think? I guess how long do you think this will last to be like a profitable endeavor that's worth your time to do?
Yeah, the thing is, teams will always do points over just handing out emissions. It just makes sense for them. So I think that the points meta will only continue. But I think the points meta have mostly been solved at this point by farmers.
Mhm.
So to expect outsized returns for like bridging ETH or just staking ETH, if the action is super easy to do and anyone can do it, then you can't really expect to make that much.
Mhm.
So in the future, I think to get crazy airdrops, like you just have to you know be more degenerate, right? Like you have to
Mhm.
take actions that like no one else wants to do. So like whether it be like just staking some like random token that no one wants to stake,
Mhm.
like yeah, I think it's going to get a lot more complicated. But I don't really see the points meta stopping. I think it makes sense for market participants to value these points less and farm like less aggressively. I'm definitely going to farm less aggressively moving forward.
Mhm.
But there's like no like it's all about incentives, right? Like from a dev perspective, why would I give out tokens to Taiki and JMO for free that I'm going to dump day one when I can just give out points, make money charging fees for 6 months, and then drop a token that then will dump. But the end result's the same, like token dumps.
Yeah.
But at least with points, like the team makes money and the metrics look okay.
Uh-huh. If you were on the other side of it, if you weren't a farmer, but if you were like running a protocol and you wanted to release a token and you wanted to have a points program, um, and you wanted to sort of avoid the situation you're talking about, like people are just jumping on your protocol for the points and then dumping it and then moving on. Is there something specific you do, or how would you, like from a farmer's perspective, how would you design a points program to, retain users and to grow, so say like any sort of DeFi protocol?
The thing is, like, there's only so much you can do from like a like incentive design perspective, right? It's like if some protocol introduced like 4-year locks or whatever, it's maybe it pumps the token like day one, but the end result is zero anyways.
Uh-huh.
So I don't really think that incentive mechanic really matters. Like what matters is you have to create a good token. So I was just more focused on creating a product that people want, and try to get the token as early as possible, like, just get it out there, because you don't want people to feel like they're getting farmed. And maybe I'll do like a 20%, 25% supply airdrop, just so that I can get like, supply out there. Token will launch lower probably because there's more supply to dump. And then maybe people can actually get in on the ground level at a lower val. That's probably how I'll do it. I'll try to launch token
Hmm.
at a lower val, do a more favorable supply airdrop supply dynamic, knowing that the token performance is going to be poor. But if I'm building something that actually has value, then it doesn't really matter, right? Where it launches at, it's just going to go up. So I'll show you like more focus on that.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm
that
not sure if
makes
that
sense.
answered the question, but yeah.
No. I mean, like, I think it's a difficult question to answer, just because, like, I don't think that, like, if there was like an obvious correct answer, obviously these protocols would be doing it, and like it'd be great if you could design a points program where people didn't dump your token and then that they stayed on and use your protocol after the points program expired. But like
Yeah.
that, that's
And
that's uh that's pretty difficult for any protocol to do these days.
yeah, like what Ambient's doing is like they don't tell us how the points work. They're just gonna give points. So
Hmm.
it's like less gameable. So maybe that's the best way, right? Because if you announce how to get points, then people will find a way to like abuse it.
Uh-huh.
But if you just keep it behind a black box, like I guess I can somehow control what types of behaviors get incentivized. But
Yeah.
also like, it doesn't really fix the problem, right? People are gonna dump
Uh-huh.
it regardless.
Uh-huh. Well, like on that note, how aggressively do you think these protocols should go after people that are attempting to civil, or attempt to at least design their airdrops so it's as linear as possible to like avoid a situation where you have like these like rumored Chinese or Filipino or whatever Southeast Asian country bot farms that are apparently like basically capturing huge percentages of the supply of like a lot of these protocol tokens.
Yeah, so I think the solution is just straight up linear.
Hmm.
So, person with a million TVL gets 10x more than someone with 100K.
Hmm.
But you also don't want to alienate people, that is just getting into crypto. Because if you bridge to whatever chain or you restake and it's your first crypto experience
Hmm.
and you get like a $3 airdrop, it just feels bad.
Hmm.
So maybe have like a minimum threshold of like, the minimum size airdrop size is like $100, and then everything above that is linear. It still
Hmm.
favors civils, but I think you know, it's still probably a better model where everyone feels okay. Um, but at this point, I think everyone is so upset because like I don't even think it's because of the airdrop. I think because ETH is not pumping, everyone is going to be upset, like no matter what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. Everyone's just like mad. So it's impossible to keep people happy at this point.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like is how entitled people have gotten about their airdrops or their prospective airdrops, thinking that they're, entitled to just like a pile of money at the end of the rainbow, like every single time they move their assets across a chain or like lock their
Yeah.
assets in like in a certain chain. And I don't think it was like this, maybe like 6, 9 months ago, where like basically people were just doing it like and speculating, and then like some of them went really 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 well, so they like moved their assets somewhere else and that went well as well, and then they sort of developed like the sense of entitlement that like everything that they farm or every time they like restake or every time they use a new protocol, there should be like a huge payoff for them towards the end of it. And like not every protocol is going to make it. Most of them don't make it. Like not every points program is going to be is going to produce a token that's going to like retain value or have any value in like the current crypto ecosystem. And it just feels like, like the previous generation. I mean, it's not even really like a generation since it's like the past like maybe like 2 years at most, but like the previous generation of like OG points program farmers had this like sense of entitlement at that to a point where like they're on Twitter like insulting people or like insulting founders, calling them scammers, like questioning their character just because like the money that they got from the airdrop isn't sufficient in their eyes. I find that like kind of funny, but also kind of ridiculous that like we're at a state like that right now.
Yeah, and I think it's because, I mean, I've tweeted about this and talked about this, but there's nothing to do on chain, you know?
Hmm.
Like the only thing to do on chain is to buy meme coins or bridge or restake with like some tokenless protocol.
Hmm.
Like that's literally the use case of crypto right now, right?
Hmm.
So if people don't want to buy memes, they airdrop farm, and then it's like the one it's like our way of just generating, I guess, income in a sense.
Hmm.
So if it's disappointing, then people are pissed. And I think you know there's like those Discord copy pastas, right? Where it's like, I don't know, like the country of India is angry. This is this is horrible. And then it's like I think some like industrial operators, they have like 1,000, like 10,000 Discord accounts, like fake accounts, and they
Yeah.
like just spam stuff. And then I think when layer zero dropped, there was like the hashtag like zero scam or something.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think that's
And
organic, right? It's all fake. Like, but
is this when they said like this is the 9/11 of my country or something? What
yeah,
was the
something along
airdrop?
those lines.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah, well, it seems like there are quite a few people farming, but then you also have like these, automated bot rings. You have like these because it's become like so profitable, especially for people like that are in countries where, like even like the mid-level airdrops is generating like yearly income pretty easily per airdrop. So it's I don't know, like the incentives are there for sure. But like to me, like I'm not sure how long this really lasts. I feel like crypto, at least the time I've been in crypto, which is I guess quite some time, has been pretty like cyclical where a lot of stuff gets, rebranded or like tinkered in a way. Whereas like, in like 2017 we had like ICOs, which are like essentially like the precursor to like what DeFi was, or what like you would print an ERC20 token, you would give it some marginal utility, you'd sell it, people would trade it, and then they introduced like DEXs, they introduced DeFi farming, they would have emissions tokens that possibly generated some fees from the platform, but they were mostly just like sold by farmers. And then now the emissions tokens have turned into points where basically they're emissions tokens, but you don't necessarily get them, and you can't really. They have no market value until the points program is over. So it keeps people guessing a little bit as to like how much these points are going to be worth, and people are like more speculative and stuff like that. But it seems like pretty similar. At least conceptually speaking, it seems pretty similar. So I feel like I don't know what the next cycle is going to be, but I feel like it's going to be a similar product, but it's going to be marketed or presented or tinkered in a way where it feels a little bit different. You have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I can only speak for myself, and I guess my friends, but I feel like my circles that I've been, like, we're all jaded, like I think in 2021 or 2020, it's like DeFi was a thing, and there was like the hopes and dreams that this is gonna be the future of finance.
Hmm.
Even NFTs, right? It's like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy, right? Like
Hmm.
it's gonna onboard so many people. And then obviously everything just went to shit.
Uh-huh.
And then there's like the hopes that, okay, like we're buying ETH below 2K, Bitcoin below 20K, 30K. Okay, the next cycle is going to be more fun. We're going to onboard the masses, but it's 2024 and there's like nothing new. Um, so if that's the case, then there's nothing to be excited about, and all you can talk about is
Uh-huh.
price on social media, and
Yeah.
and as a result, people just talk about memes and I don't know, like whatever, right? There's like nothing to be excited about. And I think what will solve all these problems is if people have something to believe in. So whether it be the resurgence of DeFi, resurgence of NFTs, or some new primitive, like once like if there's something to believe in, then people will talk about that. Then those sectors, token will go up. It'll create some wealth. It'll make people happy, and then people can innovate on top of whatever new primitives there are. So I think people complain about points and airdrops and like meme coins or whatever, but like we just need to build something of value, right? And then a lot of those issues will go away. So I think I'm more looking forward to that future in 2025 and beyond, where it's okay, like how do we get actual users? How do we build consumer apps and like not invest in VC like infrastructure? And can DeFi NFTs come back? Like that's more of the questions that I've been asking myself. Maybe that's not like a direct answer to your question, but I think I'm more thinking about the industry in that sense, trying to be like a rational optimist.
Are there like any specific new primitives or like DeFi functionality that you'd like to see built? Or at least like, is there a direction you'd like to see DeFi go where you could log into your computer and do something that you can't really do today that might like make it more sustainable, make it more like long-term, like gain long-term adoption, gain new users, stuff like that?
The thing is, I think we've already innovated enough with DeFi. It's like we don't really need to improve on Aave. It's like Aave works, people trust it, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Uniswap works, it's good enough. Like all these things work well enough where like marginal improvements don't really do anything. I think what's more important is, can these tokens actually be investable? So I think we talked about, I mean, maybe we talked about this earlier, but like for like Lido is like a cucked coin, right? It's like doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But we all understand that like it's like a good protocol in a sense.
Yeah.
Should it be trading at 1 billion FDV? I don't know.
Probably not.
Like at some point, if this goes to $10, like no one's gonna be surprised.
Yeah.
So I think it's less so innovation on like the application side. It's more so like figuring out how these tokens accrue value. And then like that can drive more flows to like I guess on chain, which can also like help alleviate or help improve the vibes. I think new primitives could be something like SocialFi. I know Friendtech is like going to zero and all these like whatever, like it's all going to zero, right? But at some point, like it should work. Like one of these things could work. Maybe even gaming, right? Like maybe the next cycle is like innovations on SocialFi and GameFi. And it's not even like DeFi, because DeFi just works.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like looking for new things to be excited about, but it's really hard. There's like not much out there.
Going back to the actual tokens like within DeFi, I think you were tweeting maybe like a week or two ago talking about you were building a position in Aave and Maker, I believe. Maybe I got that wrong. I'm not sure, but I know Aave specifically you were like pretty bullish on, and you wrote a post about it. Are you mainly just looking at like the protocol metrics when you decide which like of these like protocol DeFi tokens to invest in, or at least hold short-term positions in, or is it like something greater than that?
It's like in a way. So I guess going back on like Aave Maker. So last year I bought Maker like in July when they posted the token buyback proposal. And I think people have this misconception that DeFi tokens are just uninvestable. I mean, I agree, like most of them are, but Maker ETH, like that ratio is up like 130% since the buyback proposal was introduced. So I think with these DeFi tokens, like all of them are uninvestable until they aren't, and then they actually become interesting. And I think it actually presents an opportunity because everyone thinks they're uninvestable, but if you actually think about it, at some point, like there are going to be good buys. So it's more so trying to time, I guess, like that inflection point. So, so going off of pattern recognition, Maker ETH just probably bottomed because of the buybacks, and Aave ETH also probably going to bottom because of the buybacks. And like I mentioned, like Aave is good enough. Like there's no other reasons to use any other money market. So I think
Yeah.
Aave is going to continue to grow in TVL and market share. And if they can actually, buy back their token, because I mean, the past like 24, 48 hours, like they made $6 million off of liquidations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the lower prices, like if Aave goes lower, then each incremental dollar that goes back into buybacks buys more units of the token. So it helps suppress downside volatility.
Uh-huh.
So I think from that perspective, it actually becomes investable in a sense. So it's more, I'm not really trying to do like PE ratios or P price to revenue
Yeah.
calculations. It's more so I view DeFi as like a growth sector. And if there's something investable in a growth sector, then I'm trying to like front run those flows moving
I
forward.
see. I see.
Is kind of how I think
So,
about it.
so you're mainly looking at stuff like, buybacks or something that like, locks the supply or removes the supply from circulation, or any like, governance catalyst that potentially makes the coin undervalued in protocols that are, you know, fairly well established, at least. Like I assume you're not, really investing in these like new startup protocols with like a couple of $1 million
No.
TVL, stuff like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's more so category leaders. It's like Uniswap and Lido, right? People think it's cucked, but at some point it's going to be uncucked.
Uh-huh.
So it's more so like when is a reasonable timeline for these things to become uncucked? And yeah, just trying to think. Like, I'm not trying to like trade like daily charts. It's more so like multi-month, multi-week timeframes. Because if the expected return or if the implied returns for airdrop farming goes down for holding ETH,
Uh-huh.
there's less of an opportunity cost to hold altcoins relative to ETH.
Uh-huh.
So because airdrop farming feels like it's dead, I
Yeah.
think if other sectors start to like ramp up, like it's gonna like people are gonna sell ETH for like other things or
Hmm.
like potentially. So I'm trying to like adapt with the meta where previously, even now, I'm like really, really heavy ETH, but now I'm like looking for reasons to buy other things
Hmm.
because I'm getting rewarded less for holding ETH,
Yeah.
like as each week and month passes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so like you don't really have to talk about like what exactly you're holding, or what you're not holding, but I know you're doing some, cross-chain farming, like you talked about, like not or missing out on Jito a bit, farming Celestia and stuff like that. How do you see the landscape of like all these I call them like alt L1s in the like next year or so? Like I feel like in the past year we've had like a pretty big explosion of all L1s and like Ethereum L2s, and like for some of these I feel like the distinction isn't like exactly clear. Like DYDX at one point was I believe it was just like Ethereum L2, and then it became like a standalone L1. um yeah, so what do you think happens? Like, you think most of the action will still happen on Ethereum, or do you think stuff like Celestia, Solana, stuff like that would pick up volume, pick up traction, stuff like that?
It's really hard, right? Because like the next hyped L1s is like Monad and like Berachain,
Yeah.
and like that could just flip the landscape on its head. Like last cycle, it was like Matic,
Uh-huh.
Avalanche, Phantom, Luna, Solana, right?
Yeah.
That was like, oh, this is like the next big thing, and now Solana is like the only viable, I guess, you know, player, right?
Yeah.
I am pretty bullish Solana. I think when you talk to founders that's trying to build some consumer app, they're all going to Solana. They're not coming on either like Sui or Aptos or anything.
Mhm.
They're just
Yeah.
going to Solana. So I guess the important part is following where the builders are going. Um, I still, yeah. So it's really hard to, I guess, buy these alt L1 tokens. I think Solana is like the only investable one out of the
Hmm.
bunch. Aside from ETH, of course, like L2s are parasitic, right? To mainnet. I think we talked about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I didn't think Blast would do so poorly.
Uh-huh.
Like it's like 800 million it's like sub billion FTV. Like I did not
Yeah.
expect that. I mean, I was like, yeah, I mean, that really surprised me. So I think, all these L2s are probably just not like not great buys. Um, the narrative for ETH is questionable. And I think that gives room for like Solana. and maybe monad bear. I mean, I honestly have no idea.
Uh-huh.
I guess you kind of just have to track where the apps are,
Yeah.
because otherwise there's like no reasons to like invest in any of these things.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like at least in my eyes, it seems like a lot of the at least a lot of the like alt L1 or L2 action isn't necessarily based on, like the technical metrics of like what you're building, but like the actual apps on it. Like if you have like one killer dApp that is like only deployed on your chain that people love using, that's going to be like far, far, far more important than, having like higher throughput or being able to process like transactions like X amount faster, X amount cheaper. And to me, like I don't know, I think that the future is less in the hands of like the actual developers of the L1s or L2s and more in the hands of like the developers and the maintainers of these dApps. Not only like developing like secure dApps that attract users, but like constantly innovating, constantly like interacting with the community and building stuff that like that is responsive to like what the community wants or what like the traders or the dApp users want. And like I identifying like so I wasn't really like very bullish on Blast. But I thought, like if someone would be able to pull something like that off, it'd be Pac-Man. He's had like
Yeah.
quite a good history of just like building something that like the people want and then like changing or innovating it to keep up with the times at least. But then I thought about it a bit, and it's a little bit different when you're just building an L2. There's a limited amount of things like you can do in terms of innovation to drive users to an L2 unless you're like directly involved in, like the actual applications developed on the L2 rather than just like the base infrastructure.
Yeah. And I think a lot of I think the ETH crowd is starting to understand this. I think the ETH people, they're like more focused on like research instead of like regular people.
Hmm.
And there's like the ivory tower meme, right? It's like ETH people are so rich they don't really care.
Yeah.
And I think the most recent L2 that was funded was Mega ETH, which is
Yeah,
supposed
mega
to
ETH.
be like super like even more centralized than the current. I don't really know how it works like exactly, but they advertise like
From what I
100,000
understand,
or
it's
million
like
TPS.
I read through it and I don't understand how it's like that much different than like what Modan is doing, but I don't know. I'm not very smart, so like.
Yeah, me neither. I talked to Xu Yao, the founder,
Mhm.
and she tried to explain it to me, and I was like, I don't know. It just like went over my head. She was just like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be super fast. And we have like Vitalik and a bunch of ETH people supporting it. So I think it's like a way for the ETH people to concede that, okay, like maybe the current L2 landscape doesn't really work. So let me, fund this Omega centralized L2 with
Hmm.
like insanely high throughput, and that can be our way of scaling ETH without, scaling the base layer and competing with Solana. It's like maybe like that's how the ETH people are approaching
Uh-huh.
things. Honestly, I have no idea. Right? Like I'm not really talking to like like Vitalik or anything.
Yeah.
But it seems like the ETH crowd is starting to understand that maybe the current L2 scaling roadmap doesn't really make much sense, and we have
Yeah.
to like
Yeah,
do
I've been
something.
I've been talking about this for a while, but I think like at this point it's like pretty much been invalidated to the point where like you look at like something like ZK Sync, Starknet, like two of the most hype Ethereum L2s, and you like look at their daily active users like by or like the people actually using them or the dApps, the volume, the TVL, stuff like that. All the metrics look like absolutely terrible. And like to me as like the end user, it's like very difficult for me to distinguish like the actual experience of using something like Starknet or ZK Sync over something like Optimism or Arbitrum or like the pre-existing L2s to a point where like there might be like a slight technological improvement, but like for my like for my interaction with the chains, I can't really see it, and then like if I can't really see it, it's not really there for me, and I feel like a lot of users feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah. There's no need for all these, right? Like there should probably just like at some point there's gonna be one L2 that does everything, and
Mhm.
everything else goes to zero. That's
Yeah.
probably what ends up happening. But at that point, like maybe they'll. I think I've heard this argument of like, if one L2 has all the users and like the volume, like why can't they just become an L1
Yeah.
and and like accrue value that way?
Yeah.
And then we're back to like the original situation of like ETH main that doesn't scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's actually going to be a problem where like if one or two of the L2s gain like huge percentage of market share, and in turn they're paying like quite a bit of fees back to ETH1, at some point they got to be like, why are we doing this? We have all the users. Ethereum doesn't have like our users. If we do our own chain, or if we move somewhere else, that they'll move with us. That they're not going to go to back to Ethereum based layer and like mess around with like what's going on there. And then yeah, you're right. I feel like the Ethereum is like back to square one of like, how do we scale this to be like a global computer that anyone can use, that doesn't price out people, that has this huge landscape of like various dApps that are not only used but like transacted multiple times, like by individual users, that they're interacting with the dApps like multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, I don't really have the answers to this, but like it seems like a problem that they're going to have to address at a certain point, instead of saying, like, we're going to have like 100 different L2s, and that's how we're going to scale Ethereum. Like I feel like there's very little chance of that actually succeeding, where you have like this huge landscape of different L2s that have like their own community, that have their own user base, that function on their own and are constantly paying fees back to Ethereum L1, and everyone's happy with the situation. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. And like one thing I've like noticed in the past like like a year or so is that like this podcast, like it sounds like I'm so bearish ETH, or I'm just like
Uh,
it doesn't make any sense. But I still hold so much ETH, and
yeah.
like all my friends, like they don't really they're not that excited about ETH, but they're like super overweight ETH.
Hmm.
Like we kind of had this situation where I feel like everyone generally understands that, like, maybe ETH is somewhat cucked this cycle,
Hmm.
but we still hold it because we all believe it's eventually going to hit all-time highs.
Uh-huh.
Uh, do you notice that, like amongst your circle, like your friends?
A little bit. Like I was actually gonna ask, like, you think like you and your circle would hold less ETH if there weren't like farming opportunities, like if you weren't in stuff like EtherFi, or if you weren't in, like eigen restaking and stuff like that, where like
Right.
you're holding spot ETH, but like you can see like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, where like your points would convert.
Yeah,
Would
yeah.
your like, if ETH, then it's not necessarily like a functionality of ETH. It's just like, using your ETH as a productive asset. If that
Yeah.
didn't exist, would you hold a lot less ETH, or would your position still be the same?
No, that's a good point. I often talk about ETH as like the airdrop farming token, like where you need
Hmm.
to hold ETH to farm things. And I kind of talked about this earlier, where if the returns for ETH, like if the implied returns for ETH compress from airdrop farming,
Hmm.
then there could be flows out from ETH to other alts because
Hmm.
there's less of an opportunity cost. Like
Hmm.
I just hold a lot of ETH because I have no idea there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets. I have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm just going to hold like the number two market cap
Hmm.
crypto asset and just, get some airdrop APY right on top of it.
Yeah.
Um, but as soon as there's more clarity for like with regulation or other altcoin narratives, I'm more than happy to like just, ditch my bag of ETH to like
Yeah.
buy more Aave or like whatever new narrative or sector, right?
Yeah.
So I can definitely see that. Yeah, maybe which is like also like a bear case for ETH, because everyone owns it and
Yeah.
people are more than willing to sell it, for something else.
Yeah. I feel like within my circle, or within my group of friends, there are a few separate camps. There are the people that are, like, I wouldn't say like Bitcoin maximalists, but like maximalists and just like holding spot, and mostly Bitcoin, diversifying, and some ETH, not really doing that much like risky DeFi. And then there's like a lot of the people that are like maximalists on ETH, are they're like either they're running their own like beacon chain validators, and doing their own restaking, and they're not really messing with you know, the dApps that do it for you, where you get points on top of like your restaking or your staked ETH. And then the people that are like really into farming, I feel like those are the people that have been moving to like other coins. And the one thing I don't particularly understand is I feel like this is true for a lot of people that are like really focused on like the farming or like the yield aspect of crypto, is that they sort of ignore the value of the coins like they have to hold. Like a lot of people are like moving to different chains, like either L1s or L2s, like buying the native token in order to farm, or you know, like utilize it, making their positions very like capital efficient, in the sense that like if they have assets on chain, the assets are doing something. But then like it's a little bit short-sighted, I think, when like a lot of these assets, even if like they have high APY, the the downside of like holding spot of a lot of these assets, if you look at like their fully diluted valuations, their inflations, like the future unlocks and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it goes zero.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's I feel like the people that like are really into farming, or really into like getting yield and chasing the next big thing that like generates yield, like miss that concept entirely, where like they could have. I mean, I feel like a lot of people could have just held like spot Bitcoin and outperformed what they did, like spending like hours a day for farming in like the past like 6 to 9 months. Um, but then if you like talk to them about it, they're like, no, no, like I'm making so much money doing this, and I've got like all these EtherFi points. I have like all these eigenlayer points, you know, like I got the Judo airdrop, this all this stuff, where they don't really go
Yeah.
back and like do the calculations of like, well, if I bought Bitcoin this day and I put it in a treasure and I didn't touch it and I just lived my life, I would have this amount of money, versus, you know, if I did all this, I would have this amount of money. And I think like it's a relatively close thing, where like people that are really into farming, or I'm not talking about you specifically, but like the people that are like really into chasing the yield, um aren't performing as well as they think they are. And I think eventually they'll slowly realize that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone somewhat realizes it, right? You just look at the ETH chart and it's it's not looking
Yeah,
so hot.
fair.
So it's like why, why do I believe in this like Vitalik coin, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but I guess it's like for me, like ETH is always something I want to own,
Hmm.
whether I'm delusional or not. So I just look for ways to like generate outside. I mean, I've definitely outperformed people like that hold ETH in like a centralized exchange or something,
Hmm.
right? Um, but you're right, like relative to Bitcoin or, you know, like name like whatever asset, like Solana or something, it's less sexy.
Yeah, I guess it's a little more fun. It's like it's something to do with your time.
Yeah, we're using a chain.
One final question before we let you to go today. Uh, I think you do like quite a bit of research when you're looking into like these protocols, or these tokens, or these farms. You want to talk a little bit about your like research process, or maybe like your daily routine of like what you look at, or how you process information? Because like, well, I feel like one of the difficulties I have um and I think I do like a lot less, at least a lot less DeFi research than you do, but I still try to, like, I do more trading than anything else, but I still try to keep in tune with like what's going on and like what the current meta is and what people are doing. But for me, it's becoming like increasingly difficult to keep up with what's going on, and then I feel like that there's a lot of noise you need to filter through. So yeah, to talk a little bit about your process, and how you like perform research and what you do day to day.
Yeah. So I guess for DeFi, there's a lot of noise, right? It's like a new protocol that's claiming to do something better, or there's like some random like new proposal for like some random DEX or something. But I try to simplify it. I think, you know, people talk about power laws, power law distributions, and um, you know, if you think about LSD sort of like example, right? It's like I don't really see anything other than Lido succeeding in
Hmm.
the future. So I don't care about like the number like rocket pool or like whatever, like stake wise, like those are irrelevant. They could be good trading tools, right? As like Lido beta or something. But instead of worrying about those things, I just follow Lido, and like just keep up with governance. I know a lot of people that does governance, that has insights into these things. So that can help me, filter throughout the filter through the noise. Like the Aave thesis, I've actually been working on this for like a year, because I've been talking to like Mark Zeller, who's like the head Aave governance guy,
Yeah.
and he's been talking about buybacks and like value accrual for basically a year. And it's more so like do we buy? Like when do I buy? And I'm not saying that Aave is going to do well because I have no idea. It's more of an educated guess, but it's I guess like my research process when it comes to the DeFi coins is just focusing on the category leaders, um, and find out like when to like actually buy them, because I think DeFi is going to be such an obvious buy in hindsight in the future. Maybe it's in 5 years, maybe it's in 3 years. I have no idea. But it's like once it gets going, like I think it'll be reflexive to the upside, and it'll be like assets that TradFi ends up buying, like institutions. So it's more so not trying to not like it's more so like trying to be an investor, and figure out like when these assets actually become investable rather than like narrative trades. And that's why I focus so much on like Maker and Aave, because they actually buy back their token. I'm less excited about Maker now because I don't really think they're like a category leader like, in some things. But I think for like things like Lido, like at some point, like even Lido, it's trading at $1. Like 3 years from now, like surely it's higher. Like I mean, I honestly have no idea, but like
Yeah.
like realistically, like where do you think Lido trades in 3 years from now, like 2027?
Probably higher than today, right? But is it still inflationary?
No, it's like all these things are mostly vested. So it's trading at like 1 billion right now. So like obviously, I think people are in crypto to gamble, right? They love the action, they love to trade in and out. And buying things for like longer term is kind of boring. And I'm not even like that good at it, right? Like I'm just a mid curve that's like trying to, like that's trying to like,
Yeah.
make educated guesses. But it's I don't know. Like, I still believe in DeFi, and if there's any time for DeFi to do well, it should be, I don't know, like pretty soon, I think. So sorry, I don't want to become a DeFi show, but I'm
No,
trying to
no,
understand like the research process.
yeah, no,
It's
no, I understand. I mean, like, I'm a big proponent of DeFi as well. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask is, like, you talked a little bit about your farming, like Scroll right now, and you thought it could be like at a certain valuation. Like, is there a process you use in like researching like these new L2s or new L1s? Like I think the other pretty hyped release ETH L2 is Linea. Is there a reason, or like is there like a metric you use, or like some sort of research process you use to decide like I'd rather farm like the scroll points and the linear points, and or something similar to that?
well, Linea is a consensus project, right? And consensus is getting sued by the SEC, so I don't want to farm something that probably won't TGE anytime soon.
Uh-huh.
Like I heard rumors that Scroll's gonna TGE, you know, late Q3 or something.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, okay, like, they're gonna do an airdrop. It'll probably be worth some couple $1 billion.
Uh-huh.
I think the market understands that like optimistic L2s probably not worth much, right? Just look at
Yeah.
Yanta Network, Blast, ZK L2s.
It's very repetitive, right? Like it's like
Yeah,
you're competing with like the 30 other like L2s that are
right.
basically the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I think people generally understand that, the end game of L2s is like ZK, like zero knowledge rollups. So I think zero knowledge rollups, even though the user experience is like pretty bad, should have some premium over like OPL2, like optimism forks essentially. Um, like even I mean, StarkNet, I have no idea how it launched like 15 billion FDV. I think ZK launched at like 6 billion.
Yeah.
So maybe Scroll launches like 3 or 4.
Uh-huh.
Like I'd rather farm something like that than Honestly, like there's like no like I honestly have no sophisticated answer. It's all about vibes, right? It's just
Uh-huh.
like using common sense. It's like I don't want to farm Linea because like they'll
I
probably
see,
never
I
do a
see.
token anytime soon.
So in
So
like
the only
the
option is
poker
scroll.
comparison, you're like more of a field player when it comes to this.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I play poker, I'm like hella super GTO with some deviations, but when it comes to crypto, there's like you just have to go
You go
off
off the
common
vibes.
sense.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
I go off the vibes quite a bit. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's all we have today. You want to let the listeners or watchers know where to find you, where to find your content and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, just Taiki Maeda. This is my name, Taiki Maeda on YouTube, Twitter. I post a lot of mid-curve takes. I'm wrong most of the time. So, so that's also the thing, right? It's like I fully established myself as the mid-curve. So it's
Uh-huh.
like if I'm wrong on something, everyone's like, oh, I like, Taiki's cute. At least he's trying. But if
Yeah.
I get something right, it's like, wow, like he got something right for once. So it's like trying to be like this fluffy, likable character is like what I'm trying to do, like instead of like trying to have an ego.
You're trying to capture the mid curve audience as being like one of
Yeah.
them. You're one of the commoners.
Yeah. I represent 68% of the population, so I have a wider reach is my thesis.
I think honestly, I think we're all closer to the mid curve than we'd like to believe. Like I tell myself that I'm like right curve, but in reality, I'm probably like way closer to the mid curve than I want to admit to myself.
Yeah. I mean, everyone tries the right curve, right? And then they end
Yeah.
up mid curving.
Yeah.
And then whenever I try to left curve, I buy some mid curve bag, it never works. I'm always
You,
stuck.
you just got to get lucky once, and then you gain the confidence of being a right curver, even if you're a mid curver. I feel like that's the like what's the phrase, like a broken clock is right twice a day.
Twice a day.
I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah,
a mid curver is like right like twice a cycle. I feel like it should be
yeah. Exactly.
the
No, like a mid curver will have like two right curve plays twice a
oh
cycle,
yeah,
essentially. And then they'll psyop themselves into thinking they're right curves.
yeah.
And then they're going to be a top signal at some point. That's
And
basically the,
I
yeah.
feel like that's the life cycle of a prominent crypto figure, from starting from nothing to be the mid curve to be like a Twitter psyop.
Yeah. Yeah. That's basically how it goes.
All right, I think that's all we have for today. I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully the market improves sometime soon. Hopefully Ethereum goes up and we get some better yields and
Wait,
more valuable points going forward.
I'm curious, JMO. Like, what are you bullish on into
Oh,
your
oh,
end?
oh,
What are your
oh,
bags?
what am I bullish on? Like I honestly like I'm pretty I'm pretty bearish on everything. I wouldn't say everything, but like the past like 4 or 5 months, I've been pretty bearish like on a lot of things. I've been I mean like I've been tweeting about this, so that this hasn't been like in news, but I've been short like quite a few assets. I got out of like all my. I'm gonna look this up right now. I am sitting in. I did the calculations today because like all the prices moved quite a
So
bit.
much.
But I am sitting in like of everything I consider like my crypto bag. I'm sitting in 1.88% altcoins right now. So that's everything outside of Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana. I believe that doesn't count for me as an altcoin. And my current stable coin position is at 65%. So
Wow.
that'll give you like a general that'll give you a general gist of like my current sentiment. But yeah,
Well,
I
I
I
mean,
think those ratios are like it's like the most stable coins I've had in a while, and it's like by far the least amount of like altcoins. Like I mean like I feel like I'm in and out of altcoin positions like pretty quickly, but like overall it's probably been around like at least like 5 or 10%, and like today it's at 1.88%. So yeah, like I think like if the bottom falls out of the crypto market, like the lower cap stuff like goes the quickest, the liquidity dries up the quickest, like the people like running through
Yeah.
the assets go the quickest, and those are the bags that have like the worst downside potential. So just like being out of those when there isn't like clear, like I feel like those positions are, like you can lose like 90%, but you can be up like hundreds of percentages. Whereas like at this point, like if you're holding like spot Bitcoin, I don't think you're ever going to be down 90% on spot Bitcoin, but you're also like it's very unlikely for you short term to increase your position by like double or triple. Um, but like in my eyes, like a lot of the coins that like have boom or bust potential, like the boom potential isn't really there anymore. So like the upside doesn't really justify the downside. So like I exited quite a bit of those, and I'm just trying not to hold anything, anything that has huge downside risk. And then mostly just like sitting in stables waiting for like reasonable buy opportunities.
Got it. How about you, Andreas? Dude? What are your bags? Show me your bags.
Well, I never sell, unlike JMO. So I'm when I'm bearish, I'm 100% BTC, and I have been for a very long time. But
Right.
but like JMO says, if you do think about the upsides and downsides, I do agree with him that it feels like there's a lot of downside even in the majors, and the upside just seems further and further away every day with a lot of dark clouds. So I do understand that position.
Yeah. Even for me, like when I'm defensive, I just I just rotate to ETH, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like over. So yeah, I guess crypto, one of the use cases of crypto is like being early as a service.
Mm-hmm.
It's like buy memes at 1 million market cap, write it to 1 billion or something. But as things go up, the risk reward gets worse. And then we're not early anymore. So like why are we holding? And then people just de-risk. Seems like maybe that's where we are. I'm still optimistic though, like multi-month horizon, but yeah, short term is kind of rocky.
Yeah, it's like I was thinking about this earlier today, but I feel like if I were to enter some more like altcoin or alt L1 L2 positions or whatever that I wanted to hold for some time, I would look for buying opportunities of because like I look through like all these tokens and they're sort of all designed the same way where they have either like that there isn't really like a fair distribution in any of these tokens. A lot of them have like VC lockups or they're vested or there's like vesting clips in some way. And then like I just like look at secondary markets and like in times of panic, people are dumping vested tokens at ridiculous discounts, even to like much lower prices. Um, so like I feel like if I were if I were to get back into holding more altcoins, I would look for those entries where like I could buy like vested positions at steep discounts for people like that just want to burn everything down and want to get out and capture those opportunities rather than just like doing something like I did previously, like dollar cost average into spot and stuff like that. Like I feel like that's going to be a better strategy going forward. But I
But
haven't thought about it too much.
but then for those tokens, even if you buy them at a steep discount, like you said, wouldn't you then be forced to sit around waiting until they become what Taki calls investable, which could be, who knows?
Yeah, but if I don't like the like my theory on this is if like the vesting cliff is almost irrelevant to me if I plan on holding the position to that point anyways. Like if like for example,
Yeah.
if Solana goes down to like $80 or like I don't know what it is right now, like $100 or something, and then people are selling lock Solana at like $50 or $60. Um, if I'm long term bullish on Solana, I would wait to the point where there's panic selling of lock Solana rather than attempting to like jump on like Binance or something and dollar cost average into like a spot Solana
Okay.
position.
Okay, no, I thought you meant when you said alts, I thought you meant outside of the majors. So maybe
No, I mean like
like we were talking about the AV and Maker
no,
and so on.
I think it could be true for like I think Curve is a good example. Like if I was like bullish on Curve and Curve, what's Curve trading at like 20 cents now? If people are selling like lock Curve, like with that expires like within a year or so at like 10 cents or like 50% spot discount to a point where like the lowest point Curve has been in like four or 5 years, I think. I think if I were to build a position, I would do it that way. And
So, so you're yes, you're
He's really
basically
bearish.
you're talking
He thinks it's gonna go lower.
but okay, so you're talking about what we can call like basically blue chip DeFi tokens and assets.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't like when people use the term blue chip because I don't really know what that means. So I don't think any of these coins
Boring.
should be considered blue chip.
Revenue
Yeah,
revenue
No,
generator. I don't know.
JMO is just trying to buy coins from paper hands, capitulating.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's just like waiting for lower.
yeah. You know, Larry Fink tried before you, and it's not happening, Jim. Well, you're not getting my coins.
Well, one man's trash is another man's treasure, as they say. I'm attempting to scoop up some trash at some point.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I think that's all we have for today.
That's a good way
That's
to
a
end
real,
it.
yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. And yeah, I actually wanted to say that like I really enjoy the content that you put out. Like a lot of it's like a little long for me to, like listen through the whole thing, but like your farms of the week, like I probably watch like a few episodes like once a week, and
Yeah.
it keeps me in tune with like what's going on in the DeFi streets, or like how like a humble farmer like yourself thinks about DeFi. So I really appreciate it. And for those who don't know, you should check out Taki's YouTube channel. He does put out some pretty good content.
Yeah. I
Thank
make
you.
really nerdy stuff. Yeah. Just very long shit. But yeah, thanks.